Dave Smith back with you with another edition of Dave Smith Unleashed. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on our YouTube page. So let's get back out to the guest hotline right now. He was on with us a couple of months ago, and boy, in my opinion, one of the all-time great sports talk show hosts in the history of Los Angeles and national radio. And of course, you can also see him on KTLA Channel 5 doing the sports news on the weekend. And I think he and I joke about this all the time. I think we've both worked with everybody except each other over the years in Los Angeles, over 30 years. It's the great Steve Hartman. What's up, Steve?
Dave, it's a fact. It's a fact. I mean, you and I have had many partners over the years, but outside of sharing a few shows together with just the two of us, not on air, but really, you've done a show or I've done a show or a podcast. They've never teamed us together. I think they think that's too dangerous, apparently.
Too explosive. They don't like ratings or hiring talented people, especially in Los Angeles sports talk radio. You know that.
Well, there's been a lot of politics, as you know, over the years, and that accounts for some unaccountable airing of certain shows over these many years.
Well, let's start with the World Series, Steve. And, the Dodgers up 2-1 now after that 18-inning game. And what can you say about Shohei? I mean, we talk about him a lot. 2 home runs, 2 doubles, 5 walks, 9 times in a row. He wound up on first base, and that's the most ever done before that was 6. And now they're just not going to pitch to him, I think, from now on. They just walked him the last 5 times. And the manager of the Blue Jays said they're going to continue to be doing that because he's so great right now and so hot, you just can't pitch to him. He's getting the Barry Bonds treatment, Steve. So what can we say about it? And he's pitching game 4 on top of everything else.
Well, I will tell you this, like you say, I mean, this was what Barry Bonds was getting done. I mean, Barry Bonds 1 year had 120 intentional walks, 232 total walks in a year. So you don't pitch to guys like this. By the way, this tied the major league record, regular season record, for most times getting on base in a single game. The immortal Max Carey, who led the National League in stolen bases, a record 10 times, last did it in 1942. So 9 times getting on base in a game, tied a major league record for any game. So again, we've talked about this over and over again about, how do you classify Shohei Otani with the all-time greats? And the answer is, he's one of one. There's never been anything like him. Now, you could argue, was Willie Mays the great? I've always said Willie Mays was the greatest all-around player. He led the league in home runs 4 times. He led the league in stolen bases. He was the best defensive center fielder. He was truly the best at being a 5-tool guy. Shohei Otani is a DH and a pitcher. So it's hard to classify as the greatest of all time. We're always singling in the moment, but there's no question that he is one of one. There has never been a player like Shohei Otani, and probably never will be again.
Now, Schneider, the Blue Jays manager, they said, are you going to walk him every time after the game? And he said, yeah, that's pretty much what it's going to be. And, unfortunately, Mookie Betts has been struggling hitting behind Shohei in the lineup, so they might be able to get away with it. You think Dave Roberts might consider maybe moving Freddie Freeman up one spot, who had the game-winning home run, and maybe protecting Shohei a little more in the lineup?
It's a great question. And it's funny because last night before the walk-off home run, he hit 2 major shots to center field. One was up against the wall. Another guy made a nice running catch deep in. So he was starting to tee it up. You could just see Freddie was definitely getting locked in and then put the game away. I would say, why not? I mean, it's hard to do that to Mookie Betts because obviously he's a future Hall of Famer. What he has done moving to shortstop this year is absolutely amazing for the Dodgers. But when they're walking the guy in front of you 5 straight times, last one, technically not an intentional walk, but it was 4 straight balls well out of the strike zone, and you can't deliver, that's a problem. And you look at the Blue Jays said it best after the game. They didn't win the World Series last night. Dodgers did not win the World Series. They won a game. And this is a team, the Toronto Blue Jays, that lost 2 games at home and came back to win a series against Seattle. So they feel good about this. And, just taking the bat out of Otani's hands makes a lot of sense.
Well, again, that was a tough loss for Toronto last night. They got into the Dodgers bullpen early, which everybody thought was going to be the key to them winning the World Series. Had a runner thrown out at third, I think, in the ninth inning. A runner thrown out at home plate in the 12th inning. Second inning, they had the bases loaded and one out. Got a runner picked off at first base. And they had all kinds of opportunities. But I think, Steve, none greater than when Clayton Kershaw came in. I think it was in the top of the 12th. Bases loaded, 3-2 count, 2 outs. And he throws one about a foot outside the plate and in the dirt. And for some reason, the Blue Jay hitter swings at it and weakly grounds out. That walks in a run, and they probably win the game if he has some discipline up there.
Well, Dave, we're all wondering how, because Dave Roberts had almost promised that somehow, some way, he would get Clayton Kershaw into one of these World Series games at Dodger Stadium. That was a very unlikely scenario that he would come in that instance. And by the way, on the 2 previous pitches, they were also out of strike zone. He fouled them off.
Exactly.
So I mean, it was a 3-2 count, and he's fouling out 2 pitches out of the strike zone, and then, as you said, grounded out on a pitch that was put outside. So he did it. I mean, I promise you this: that is the last time you will ever see Clayton Kershaw in a major league game. Ever, ever, ever. There's no scenario where Kershaw will ever appear again for the Dodgers. So Dave Roberts fulfilled his promise. Even Kershaw said it afterwards, the idea that he was going to be able to pitch one final batter in a World Series game at Dodger Stadium puts a cap on his career. But yeah, I mean, the Blue Jays had their chances. Dodgers had all kinds of chances. It was weird because as I'm watching this game, I'm like, is Will Smith leading off every inning? It just seemed like he was leading off. And then when he dropped the bat thinking he had hit the walk-off home run and it came short, that's a little embarrassing, Dave. That's a little embarrassing, right? I mean, I know they're like, well, it's heavy air. It wasn't that cold last night at Dodger Stadium. Are you kidding me? I mean, it was, I don't know, upper 60s, maybe even at that time at night. So it wasn't like that heavy of air for him to drop the bat like he had just, ended the game. I thought that was honestly a little embarrassing, not to take away from Will Smith. Any guy that can sit there behind home plate for 18 innings, man, is unbelievable. And the way he handled these pitchers coming out of the pen, I mean, look at everybody's talking about Will Klein. I mean, this guy was absolutely unbelievable. He will go on that list, Dave, of all those obscure players that had a moment in a World Series game. The whole country's watching. Well, I don't know how many people are watching on the East Coast at 2:30 in the morning, but what he did with those 4 scoreless innings was absolutely mind-blowing.
Steve, that's interesting. I don't think we've talked about this yet in all the times you've been on with me. Shohei Otani and the gambling scandal with Ipe Mizuhara, his interpreter here. I've never really bought into this whole story. I don't know how you feel, but remember the first story that came out on ESPN was Shohei knew very well about the gambling issues that Ipe had, and he decided to bail him out being a friend and said, okay, I'll pay off your debts for you to get out of this. Then after that, the story changed. Then all of a sudden, Shohei knew absolutely nothing about what was going on. He was caught. He was dumbfounded. He was flat-footed about what happened here. And I find that, Steve, hard to believe when your best friend makes 34 separate wire transfers of $500,000 of your money and you don't know about it. Your accountants don't know. The bank doesn't red flag you. The people around you don't. His agent doesn't know. It just seems to be a lot of stuff missing here. Dave Smith Unleashed, brought to you by MTS Transportations. And mention the Dave Smith Unleashed podcast and get 20% off on your next shipment for all your shipping, trucking, and freight needs. There's only one business to call, and that's MTS Transportations at 800-640-6873. MTS Transportations, 800-640-6873.
Well, it's very similar to the cover-up of Michael Jordan's gambling in the NBA, which he gambled and bet on pretty much every game he ever played in the NBA, by all accounts, and the other players have done the same. But when you have that kind of value to your sport, they will brush it aside. I'm sure as that guy sits in prison right now, he's been promised something to keep his mouth shut on the other side. So do your time, and don't worry, you'll walk away and you'll be happy. You won't be starving. So. Look, who knows what the truth is? We'll never get the full truth, just like we've never gotten the full truth about Michael Jordan, how deep he was into gambling while he was playing in the NBA, because we see what happens, and with the NBA scandal right now, the timing on that one was unbelievable. Coming off a big opening night, and the FBI, which had been investigating for years, decides, okay, this is one we're going to break the story. We're going to arrest the Trailblazers coach and everything else. So, if look, we talk about conspiracy theories. If you think about conspiracy theories, and they always make for great chatter, here's the bottom line is, where there's smoke, there is fire. Just remember that. Where there is smoke, there is fire. Cliche, yes, but so much the truth. How deep the truth is, we've had cover-ups in every aspect of every life forever, and will continue to do so. So, yeah, they brushed aside Shohei Otani and what he actually knew about, like you said, tens, hundreds of millions of dollars being drained out of his bank account. He had no clue. Come on, of course he did. So, but, it is what it is.
$700 million contract, and it's a different situation with him, when it comes to the merch all over the world, in the Orient and South America and in Europe, not only America, a great foreign-born player like Shohei. He's the golden goose, Steve. I think you made this point. There's no way he's going to go down for this if Major League Baseball has anything to say about it.
Absolutely not. And remember, by deferring his contract, when he actually starts getting paid in this contract, it will have doubled. It'll be well over $1 billion that they owe him, and that number will just multiply, because frankly, he doesn't seem the guy that's going to be extravagant and spend a lot of money. It was like the whole thing about Michael Jordan's gambling. Everyone says you don't seem to have. He has more money than God. He's not. He's a billionaire. He's not going to go through all that money. It just it entertains him, and that's why he does what he does. So I don't know, again, what Shohei Otani's off-field activities are. And honestly, to be honest with you, Dave, I really don't care. Do I enjoy watching somebody that just transcends a sport? We've had very few of these guys, whether it was Tiger Woods at his peak. We go down the list. So Michael Jordan, whatever. As a sports fan, every time you say I've seen the best or I've seen everything, and then something or someone comes along unlike anything you've seen before, and as a sports fan, I love it.
Do you think him going to the Dodgers helped maybe escape any scrutiny or any punishment from Major League Baseball? Had he stayed an Angel, pretty much an irrelevant franchise that never makes the playoffs, you think there might have been a more scrupulous investigation of what was going on with him and Ipe? And you think going to the power franchise like the Dodgers helped him escape?
Again, it's your star power. Has Mike Trout escaped certain scrutinies during his career when he was, MVP or runner-up for MVP every single year? And there were a lot of whispers about what he was involved with. Look, stars are protected, Dave. I don't care where they play. They are protected because they have great value either to their individual cities or to the sport as a whole. So if you're a star, if you get eyeballs, if you're the kind of person that sells tickets, you can pretty much do what you want to do.
We've talked about the UCLA Bruin football team, Steve, and boy, what a turnaround. 3 straight wins. They look great. They beat a top 5 team in Penn State, and you were warning, well, reality might be setting in against the number 2 Indiana coming up. And then last Saturday, it was a 56-6 beatdown, Steve. So reality set in after that great run by the Bruins.
Well, they are what they are, and they're probably, I honestly don't think, they have Nebraska at home. They're not going to beat Nebraska. They have Washington home. They're not going to beat them. Road games against Ohio State. They're going to go 3-9 this year. Look, what's interesting now with all these firings, Dave, we obviously have never had anything like this. We're talking, top-level programs firing coaches in the middle of a season. Just that alone was such a rare occurrence, but to have, half a dozen of these guys lose their jobs during the course of a season. It's interesting because I've been hearing, because I'm not a big James Franklin guy because he doesn't win any big games. But one of my sons said, hey, Dad, bring him to UCLA. I go, why would you want James Franklin? He doesn't win any big games. He goes, forget winning big games at UCLA. How about just winning a game? If the guy can come in and win 8 or 9 games a year, UCLA would be happy, really happy to just, have winning seasons. It'll be very interesting to see who ends up at UCLA. Can they get one of these guys? Will they invest in one of these guys? I hope they will. Brian Kelly, these are quality coaches. Maybe they're not delivering the national championships, that some of these delusional, myopic universities think they're entitled to every year. But at a school like UCLA, where you just want to get back to level ground and maybe a little bit better than average on a consistent basis, heck, you'd hire one of these guys in a heartbeat.
I read this morning, Steve, that it's $168 million in contracts these colleges are going to have to pay out now with coaches who aren't coaching at their schools anymore. Brian Kelly, James Franklin, Billy Napier. Do you think, and Lincoln Riley, who's on the hot seat at USC with that 10-year deal he got, do you think universities now are not going to give out these long-term deals for $100 million anymore to these coaches after getting burned so many times?
Oh, no. They're going to continue to pour it out. What it really exposed, Dave, is how much money these universities are making on sports. I'll go back to a school like UCLA. When I was at UCLA back in the 70s, we had a legendary athletic director named J.D. Morgan. He was the guy that kept the NCAA off John Wooden's right-hand guy, Sam Gilbert. All right. I mean, Sam Gilbert was doing things out in the open, paying money to the players. And John Wooden's winning national championships, and the NCAA would sniff around, and J.D. Morgan said, look away. Look away. UCLA basketball has put that sport on the map. Look away. And they did. And then J.D. Morgan died. And after that, the Chancellor, Charles Young, said, never again. Never again will I answer to an athletic director. The next thing you know, he hired a guy named Pete Dallas that literally was tossing guys towels at the rec center and made him the athletic director at UCLA. And so what's happening now is that these universities feign, this idea of, what a racket. That's all I can say about the whole university system. What a racket. For the most part, your degrees at any university are absolutely worthless. If you don't know people on the outside, you have no chance of getting any work. Let's start right there. Secondly, they continue to, gouge everybody as far as tuition fees, thanks to that lame brain idea by our federal government to grant federal loans, and that gave them the green light to jack up the prices on everything else. And then the amount of money that these television deals are pouring into these universities, hundreds of millions of dollars. And that's why you see these universities, construction going everywhere, new buildings being built everywhere. Where's that money coming from? It's coming from these incredible sports television contracts, putting hundreds of millions of dollars into the coffers of these universities. Hypocrisy knows no limits in these universities and the way they conduct themselves. So, look, I mean, all this has done is proven exactly how much money is out there. The best was the Napier firing, because they needed $20 million plus to get rid of him, and they finally found the guy after he won a game. The reason he was fired after a win was that's when the money came into the bank to actually pay the guy off. I mean, this is how insidious this entire thing is, Dave.
Well, the three big ones, excuse me, LSU, Florida, and Penn State. LSU's talking about Lane Kiffin, maybe the guy from Tulane who's nearby that's 7-1 right now. They're even talking about Urban Meyer at Florida, maybe coming back. I don't know if he wants to coach again. And Penn State, maybe Brian Kelly. Who do you think Lane Kiffin would leave Ole Miss for probably a better situation at LSU or Florida?
Yeah, for $12 million a year. $15 million a year, they'll pay it. Look, if you have the money to pay up Kelly for $54 million, you have the money to give Lane Kiffin whatever he wants, and especially since Florida is also after him. So you got Florida and LSU and the SEC competing for a guy who was fired on the tarmac
it's amazing.
In L.A. by USC. I mean, you talk about a comeback. And he's got to be just absolutely laughing. I can only imagine Lane Kiffin staring in the mirror like, can you believe this? Can you believe this? I was the laughing stock of the coaching industry. I crawled and begged Nick Saban to get a job to somehow survive in this business. And I'm going to soon be the highest paid coach in college football, because he will be.
You make a case. Nick Saban saved the careers of Lane Kiffin and Steve Sarkisian. He brought them both in when nobody wanted to touch them.
Exactly. Look, it's so funny you mentioned Nick Saban. Like, everyone's like, well, Nick, come on, I'll pay you whatever. I mean, $20 million, $30 million, whatever, they'll pay you. Like at North Carolina gave Belichick $10 million a year. He never coached a single game. How's that working for them? But you know what? They're going to buy him out. He walks away laughing. I mean, it's just insane. But again, it points to the bigger picture here, Dave. How much money is rolling into these universities? There is no end to it. It's absolutely crazy. And then you go to these universities. I got my degree, and then you get out there. Oh, no jobs. Wow. Yeah, that's faith. It just what a racket. I mean, it's the ultimate racket.
Great stuff. Great stuff, Steve. We love talking to you again, and I understand we're going to do a part 2 here coming up pretty soon. So I appreciate you hanging in there and talking to the only guy that you haven't worked with in over 30 years in Los Angeles radio and national sports talk radio.
Always fun, Dave.
Okay, thanks for tuning in. That's it for Dave Smith Unleashed. We'll talk to you next time, and everybody keep listening and go to the YouTube page.